1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still working, didn't break it. Next. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be my September beauty roundup, where I'm sharing all of my thoughts on everything new to me that I tried throughout September, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so kicking us off, we have some new brushes from Rephr. I've had these for a few weeks now. I've been trying them out, seeing how I like them. Let's start off with the little eye brush trio. So these are the Shodo trio. We have Shodo 00, Shodo 02, and Shodo 03. So these brushes, while they look, and at first glance, because I received these before like all the information was on the website, and then I had a chat with Tom, the amazing founder at Rephr, about them, how they were designed. At first glance, when you look at them, you just think they're like any other eye brush. The shapes are slightly different than their existing brushes, but you know, they look like your average eye brushes. But when you actually start feeling these and using them is when you feel the difference, because these were designed by calligraphy experts. So that's what the word Shodo is. I believe it means calligraphy, is that right? Or something along those lines, to indicate that inspiration from calligraphy pens or calligraphy tools. So they almost have two types of bristle, or two sort of feels to the bristles within each brush. You've got a sort of more dense, sturdier middle to the brushes, and then at the end they're tapered to be really precise and fluffier. And so they kind of give you two options in one, and that's how you know if you kind of think about how calligraphy is. With one tool, a calligraphy artist will make a really thicker part, say of like a curve, like a C, and then that flick on the end with the same brush that can be very precise, like a winged liner flick. So these brushes are designed so that you can use them to diffuse and blend out, but they also have that real precision on the tip to get a flick or to get more of a precise application or more control over your product, which I love. And you really can feel like the two different types of the bristles within. So you've got that sort of firm, sturdier heart, and then the more precise, accurate tip, which I think is so clever and such a great idea. So they're more different perhaps than they appear, and more versatile than they might look at first glance, which I absolutely love. And let's talk about this bad boy. Now I showed this special Holiday Koyo brush from Rephr in my Dior Holiday review. I showed it in action. This is just stunning. I don't know if it will still be in stock at the time this video goes out, probably not. If it is and you're interested in it, I would grab it sooner rather than later. It's very limited edition, limited quantities, and it is stunning. Not only does it have the most stunning, gorgeous detail on the handle, it is the most clever brush. As I said in my Dior review, if you want to see more about it, see it up close and in action, check out my Dior review. It's just the perfect angle. It's such a versatile brush. You can use it for blush, for bronzer, for highlighter, for powder, for buffing, for contour. It can literally do any job with powders that you can think of. You could certainly use it to set, you know, your under eye area, pretty much anything, you name it, it can do it. What I love about it, beyond how insanely beautiful the handle is just the way the brushes are packed. So it's very light and fluffy. Of course, it's very soft because it's made with like the highest quality of hair, but the angle and just the fluffy, light airiness to it is what's special. I used this with a really deep, much too dark for me bronzer today, and it just made it so easy to work with. Laid down the perfect amount for a subtle bronzer with a bronzer I usually can't use because it's too deep for my skin tone. It gives you such a diffused application, so natural, so airbrushed because it's so light, and it just, my favorite way to use this is for blush, as I did in my Dior, because it's a a makeup area that I find I struggle with. I find it hard to control the amount of product, to stop it coming too far in towards my nose because I have a narrower face shape. I want to keep my blush to the perimeter and more lifted so that it doesn't drag my face down or make it look narrower and longer even than it is already. And this is just, it applies like it's the perfect shape. You don't have to blend, you just literally apply it, and it applies it blended. If you see what I'm saying. It's so clever. I've been using it non-stop for everything. It's, I think, the best brush Rephr has ever done. And that's saying something. Next up, let's talk about this foundation from Urban Decay. This is the Face Bond foundation. So I like this. It's not my kind of foundation. I won't be using it a lot going forwards because it is a more matte foundation. And so it's just not my typical preference. I love a glowy foundation, a radiant foundation, particularly in winter when you can kind of get away with it more and they wear better typically. This is just, it's a little too matte for me, and I don't find it as bulletproof as I think the claims would have you believe. I've definitely got a fair amount of transfer from this foundation, and it's supposed to be like waterproof, bulletproof, sweat resistant and all of that. So I don't think it wears quite as well as the claims would have you believe. And I like it, it's okay for me. But there's nothing wow factor or super special. It's not one of those matte foundations that I forgive for being matte because it's just so beautiful and flawless. It's just everything is okay. The finish is okay. You know, the way it sits on the skin is okay. The coverage, the wear is okay, but it claims to be like phenomenal. I don't think it is. I like the packaging if you're looking for something very travel friendly, but I think you just have to have different skin type to mine, something, you know, maybe an oilier skin type so it gives it a bit more life, or you just prefer this kind of foundation, because there was nothing about it that really like stood out to me and grabbed me and made me want to use it among lots of my other foundations. Not bad, but like not knocking my socks off either. Next up, I tried a new mascara this month. I don't think this is a new mascara, it's just new to me because I was sent it. This is the Armani Eyes to Kill mascara. I'm wearing it today. I don't mind this mascara. I don't think it's giving me eyes to kill. I think it's barely giving me like eyes to wound or maim slightly. So for me, it's just not doing enough for me. It feels a little dry, given that it was like a brand new mascara. It feels a bit sort of like maybe it might be a bit flaky as it ages a little bit, and it just wasn't impactful enough for me. This is like 2 to 3 coats that I've got on today, and I'm still like hankering after a little bit more kapow. I did like it on my lower lashes, but not enough to make me like want to continue using it. This is just, it's not enough for me. It's not giving me enough. But I do love the packaging, very sleek, very chic, just not enough. I need more in my life. Next up, let's talk about these new Lisa Eldridge launches. Over the last month, I was very lucky to be gifted her liquid shadows and her Fawn palette ahead of the release. So I've been using these for a long time now, and I really know them very well, I feel. A couple of my absolute favorites to use actually as eyeshadow as opposed to primer, and you can use them both ways. Talia, I think, is my favorite, and this looks so scary, like to me, to use as eyeshadow when you do a swatch like that and it looks so dark. These blend so incredibly well that this is like become one of my favorite one and done shadows. If you can see how much you can blend that out from that really intense, which of course you can get that intense payoff if you want, but if like me you want something barely there that's going to be really diffused, a one and done all over the lid, buffed into the crease towards the brow, and just be a one and done shadow. Yes, you could go, you know, and tap a bit of shimmer on the lid, but you don't need to. It's just so pretty by itself and so flipping easy. They blend so easily, and once they are set, you just end up with the most soft blurring, silky, just like the name, silky looking lids. No texture, no crepiness. They're so flattering. I feel like they're such a game changer for those of us, you know, who have more mature eyes. Maybe your eyes are getting that crepiness as we age, which is totally normal. This is going to be so flattering on those eye types and those more mature eyelids, because it's so smoothing and flattering. And of course it doesn't have any shimmer or sparkle, which lots of people, as we get more mature and our eyes age, lots of people avoid shimmer and sparkle and glitter because it's not especially flattering. But these are the perfect solution to more mature eyelids, and they're just so flippin' easy to use. You know, I don't love liquid products in general for, like, you know, cheeks or eyes. These are my favorite ever liquid eye product. Again, this is Gaia, and this is another one that looks terrifying. And again, I will use this as a really blended out, diffused one and done shadow that's, you know, sort of the equivalent of using bronzer and a one and done, quick on the go, don't need anything else. They're absolutely game changing. I'm obsessed with them. And then the Fawn eyeshadow palette, oh, it's just perfectly neutral. I love it so much. It's not too warm, it's not too cool, it's perfectly wearable, so easy to use, so easygoing, so flattering. The formulas, Lisa Eldridge's eyeshadow formulas, are incredible, and this is no exception. I just love doing a couple of the sort of neutral, more matte shades, and then a little bit of this shimmer on the lid for like an everyday, elegant, pretty, easy and fast everyday look. Her packaging is like stunning. I love these eyeshadow palettes. I just want more and more of them. Please, Lisa, give us more. They're just stunning. Next up, it's been so long, I feel, since I had these that it feels like they should have been in last month, but I think they maybe launched right at the beginning of September, and so it feels like I've had them longer than I have. But it's the Hourglass Holiday palettes. Oh, this is without a doubt my favorite ever ambient lighting edit release from Hourglass. I think the trio all together, they're like my top 3 favorite palettes. I think they knocked it out of the park, from the fact that we have all new shades apart from the finishing powders, which I don't care about. We have all new shades. I love the packaging. I know that's maybe an unpopular opinion, especially Dragon is gorgeous. Evil Eye, I think, is my favorite of the 3. If you know, have my arm against my back, then I think this would be my favorite. It's just all 3 of them have shades that I love to use. And typically Hourglass will give us very pink blushes and not a lot else, whereas we've actually got some neutral blushes, some peachy blushes. I love this one as well because it only has 1 finishing powder. Sometimes they have 2, and I don't really use those, so that's a waste for me. So that's why I would prefer Evil Eye over Dragon. I do love Dragon as well, but the 2 finishing powders, that's a no for me. But the blushes, again, more neutral, more peachy options that we've been crying out for. They're all stunning, and I think that this is, again, overall the deepest Hourglass have ever given us when it comes to one of these palettes. I did link several deeper skin reviews of this palette in my original Hourglass review of the 3 palettes, so you can see it on much deeper skin tone than mine, and it looks stunning, really beautiful. I think they could go even deeper. I love that they didn't do the marbling in this palette, so that keeps the shades as rich as they look, as opposed to the marbling can sometimes make things lighter than they look. So I love that they did that. Again, the shades in here, so beautiful for deeper skin. I think we've got something for everybody. I'm loving using them. And typically with these palettes, you know, I will review them, I'll use them for a few weeks, and then I stop using them because I tend to just reach for singles more often than I do face palettes day to day, but I'm barely using anything else these days. I have kept these on top of my desk because I want to use them so much. I love them. I think they're the best ones they've ever done. I think overall it's the best collection they've ever done, the most inclusive. My favorite overall, Evil Eye. I couldn't have made it better myself. Well, I could have done, because I'd have taken out the finishing powder and given myself another blush, because that's just how I roll. Next up, let's talk about Charlotte Tilbury's Holiday palette. I did also pick up one more of her Hypnotising Pop Shot singles. This is the shade Smoky Quartz. I'm wearing it today with a little bit of support from this palette. I love these Hypnotising Pop shots. They're not a new formula. This is a new to me shade. It's a little darker and grungier than I perhaps expected for every day, but it's still a gorgeous shade. And for like a night out, a one and done shadow, stunning, so easygoing. I really love those shadows. But the palette, so I've had this a couple of weeks now and I've been using it a lot. I've used every shadow in here numerous times. Nothing has changed from my review when it comes to the quality of the shadows, the formulas in here. I love them. This one does have a little more fallout, it's a little more crumbly, but that doesn't really bother me. I just do my eyes first and then I don't have to worry about the fallout. The mattes are brilliant. I love the mattes. I really like this packaging. The one thing that I think I have found since my review from using it more day to day is that it is not very versatile. I find that no matter what combination of shadows I use from here, I essentially end up with the same look, the look that I did in my review when I used, I think, almost all of the shades. So there's very little you can do to change it. I feel like all of the shadows, although they're not necessarily, don't look like, you don't look at this and think, oh, it's all the same. I think it's just, there's no light and shade. They're all a very sort of similar depth, and therefore you can't really get away from the sort of very pink, more grungy pink, deeper pink look. It almost comes out, every time I use this palette, it comes out with the same look, which isn't a look that I dislike, but it's also not like my typical kind of makeup. And also I feel like we could have done that in a quad. When you've got a 9 pan, I really feel like you should be able to get 3, 4, 5 looks out of it that are completely different to each other. And I very much feel that last year's Beautyverse palette did that exceptionally well. You can get so many different looks depending on which combo and which shades you use, how many or how few. You can get numerous looks out of last year's Beautyverse palette. This one, I feel like every time I use it, I end up with the exact same richer, deeper, grungier pink / red look, and that's just not a look that I love. So that's the one thing that I've noticed that is a bit of a negative, is I find it not very versatile. I find that it's the same look every time I use it. So just something to be aware of, you just need to really love that look, and then I think you'll really enjoy it because the formulas are fantastic and I think that look is beautiful. I just want like numerous looks out of a 9 pan. I want to be able to get a good few that are different, and I can't do it. Is it just me? I'm failing. Okay, it's probably my fault. Next up, let's talk about the Westman Atelier concealer. This has frustrated me so much. And I say that with love because I think this is a beautiful concealer. I used this for the first, was it the first time I used it on camera for the first time? In my makeup and movies video, I think. And I talked about the issue that I had. So I purchased a neutral shade, which is what I typically prefer when it comes to my concealer. Shade number M1. So this is a neutral shade and that's what it looks like. I don't know how well will come across on camera, but it's bright yellow. It's very Simpson yellow. So that's frustrating because I've used this so many times and I love it. I think it's got great coverage. It's so creamy. It doesn't crease throughout the day. It's beautiful. It blends so nicely. I love the packaging. However, it's bright yellow and I don't like that. It throws my makeup off. It looks off on me. I can't really wear super warm shades, being, you know, more of like a neutral olive. It looks bonkers on me. Every time I use it, it throws my whole makeup off because it's so yellow, even though it claims to be a neutral shade. And because of that, I don't have anywhere else to go. There are only warm or neutral shades in the like sort of medium range. So I can't go to a cool shade. There aren't any cool shades around the depth that I need. So there's nowhere for me to go. There is no better shade. You know, a neutral shade is very, very yellow. Goodness only knows what a warm shade would look like, and there are no cool shades. So for me, this is going to be a pass. I can't keep using it. I don't have anywhere to go when it comes to picking a better shade for me, which is really sad and disappointing because I think you could have been great. You could have been great. You were so close. I hope they come out with more shades because it's a fairly limited shade range. I really hope they hear the feedback. I know I'm not the only one that's found this. I hope they hear the feedback and give us more shades because I think the product, the concealer, is great, but I can only like it so much when the shade is so off undertone wise. So yeah, it's not going to go into my kind of top drawer regular rotation solely because of the shade. But if you can find a shade that works for you and your undertones, then it's beautiful. Really flattering, gentle, feels lightweight, but gives a power of coverage where you need it. Really creamy, wears beautifully. Just the shade is not for me. Let's do a little recap on Dior Holiday. So I have reviewed this whole collection fairly recently. I've only had these products maybe a week, I think. This highlighter packaging is stunning. The actual highlighter itself, I think, is a beautiful highlighter. I think if you have a lot of highlighters, I did do some swatch comparisons in my Dior review, and you'll see, you know, if you have a sort of slightly, this is the shade Coral Lumiere, not copper, coral. So this is a coral shifting gold type of highlighter. If you have a highlighter that is the coral leaning, which Dior do quite often, it's not going to be particularly different. I don't think you need to go out and grab this and it's life-changing, the most beautiful highlighter I've ever seen. It's a nice highlighter. I enjoy it. It's not going in my top drawer, I don't think. I don't think it's special enough to get into my top drawer. I think it's one of my favorite highlighters from Dior, but it's not like knocking my socks off. So I think that's an easy pass if you would rather spend your money on something that's going to add something really different and special to your collection. And, you know, over the holiday season, there's so many launches, so many beautiful things. You really want things that are really going to give you a lot of joy. And I think that the packaging will, and the embossing, but I don't think the product itself is worth, you know, going broke for. The sequin lips, oh, they're so fun. I think these are so fun and they're such a nice formula. But like I said in my review, I don't typically wear these out and about. You know, they're very sparkly once you've activated them on your lips. I think this color is stunning, 333. I love the color. And I think actually this color, as opposed to the red that I got last year, is more wearable for like not an occasion, you know, your regular day-to-day life. You don't necessarily notice it's like you're walking around with sparkly lipstick. It just is sort of light catching and reflecting and pretty twinkling. So I think you actually, you know, you could for sure wear that out and about. And I think the shade is really beautiful. But as I said in my review, the winner of the collection for me was something very, very boring to most people, but very, very exciting to me. It's this new Dior Addict shade. This is Festive Coral, and people will either agree or disagree that coral belongs in a festive collection. I think it belongs everywhere. Okay, I just want coral all of the time. It's so different to the other shades that I have in this formula. It's much more sort of soft and understated and pretty, but very, very soft. You see that it's like sort of almost barely there, the coral, very subtle, which I love, especially for this time of year when you might think, oh, you know, coral isn't really going with the wintry vibes or the autumn vibes. I feel like we've just skipped autumn, gone straight into winter, but okay, it's still autumn technically. And maybe we don't feel like wearing, you know, a really corally lip. But this one, it's so understated and easygoing. And it's, if you've got more of a autumnal neutrals or warm toned eyeshadow look and cheeks, you can't like not wear this because it's going to clash. It just goes with everything, yet gives you a little kiss of coral. So easy to wear. If you're a bit scared of colour and you usually stick with nudes on the lips, this is a perfect like first step into something different because it's not scary, intimidating, super bright or loud. It's so wearable and easygoing, and it like went straight into my handbag and hasn't left. I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite shades in that formula. It's beautiful. Next, let's talk about MAC's new Studio Radiance Concealer. This is a really nice concealer. First of all, the shade that they sent me, much, much better for me than the Westman Atelier. So they did send me a neutral shade, and it is in fact a neutral shade. A little bit light for me at the moment, but they sent me two and I just mix them together at the moment. I really like this. It's very hydrating, this concealer. It's more of a sort of medium to full coverage, probably not as much coverage as the Westman Atelier. Very lightweight. It can slightly crease throughout the day if I don't really set it, but it wears really well, just with a tiny little bit of creasing throughout the day. Such a nice concealer. I don't think it's going to become like in my top 3. The coverage is a little less than I like, and the texture of this, it kind of requires a sponge for me because it feels very serum-y. You know, it feels almost like as you're sort of blending it out, if you use a brush, can leave brush strokes, so you need to use a sponge, and then you kind of lose a bit of coverage doing that. So the coverage isn't quite enough for me and what I look for, but it's beautiful on the skin, very forgiving, I would say. On more mature eyes, I think it's going to be lighter, it feels lighter, and it looks more natural than your typical matte full coverage concealer, but it's not glaring, you know, almost like a highlighter on your eyes either. It's a nice sort of sweet spot in the middle. But for me, I do kind of prefer a bit more coverage to my concealers, but a really solid concealer with a great shade range. Next up, let's talk about the Gucci highlighters. Now, where I said earlier that the Dior, it's not wowing me, it's not sort of made it into my top drawer, the Gucci highlighters have made it straight in to the depths of my black heart. That's right. So much so that having used Opal Pink shade 4, which is the original one that I purchased for a couple of weeks, I went back for a second one. Okay, that's how much I fell in love with it. This is well on its way to potentially becoming my all-time favourite Holy Grail highlighter. There, I said it. Calm down. I think I mean it as well. I'm saying I speak no lies, okay? I love this Opal Pink from the first use. It's so beautiful. The shade, I love the packaging, the finish. It's just exactly what I look for. That sort of wet shine and reflection and glow that's not glittery or sparkly. It literally looks wet. Absolutely glorious. So the second shade that I went back for was Sunrise Gold shade 1, and when this arrived I thought, oh dear, that's not going to look good on me. It's white. It's literally like a sheet of paper white, and I thought, oh no, I've made an error. But it actually works on me. It's almost got a bit of a pinky shift, and it just, I don't know how it works, because even when I swatch it there, it still looks white. But when you use this sort of lightly on the skin, it's actually like, I don't know if it just doesn't have as much base as it appears, but do you see how that's not really looking super chalky? It's a totally different finish to shade 4 Opal Pink. It's way, way, way more subtle, smooth, soft. It's got sort of more of a iridescence than glow, if that makes sense. So we have Opal Pink, and then we have Sunrise Gold on the bottom. Totally different beasts. So I'm wearing Opal Pink today, and you can see how subtle it is. You know, it's barely sort of glowing. It's really melted into the skin. It's really not glowy, like highlighty at all. It's very subtle, and this is quite built up. So it didn't gazump shade 4. Shade 4 is still my absolute favourite. It's just the perfect amount of glow. So glossy looking, you know, that sort of wet, no sparkle or shimmer, just gloss, but also not super subtle either. It's perfect. I don't quite feel ready to commit 100% to saying it's my all-time Holy Grail. I need more time to do that. But I think that's where we're headed, okay? I'm just going to tell you now, I'm obsessed with it. I love it so much. I'm excited to use it. And that says a lot about a makeup item in my collection these days. In 2024, that's a big shout. Next, let's talk about these Nars Explicit lipsticks. I did a reel sharing all the shades that Nars gifted me, and you can check that out if you want to see these on the lips. This is the shade Body Heat. This is my favorite. I love this packaging. It's so chic, so luxe, beautiful, the soft touch and the soft close of the magnetic lid. I love that 3D Nars logo, very different, but still quite chic and understated. These are so nice, very pigmented straight off the bat, really nice satin formula, very comfortable, long wearing, lovely colors. But at the end of the day, they are a satin lipstick. So it's not a life-changing lipstick. They don't necessarily do anything wildly different to any other satin lipstick that I've tried, but stunning packaging, great range of shades, nothing to complain about. Let's also, while we're on lips, talk about the Macximal satin reformulation. So I'm wearing my favorite shade that they sent me, which is Del Rio. Perfect autumnal lipstick. This to me is such an improvement on the formula. It's so much creamier, I find, and they've got a lovely amount of sort of glow without being glossy. They're quite long wearing, I found, easy to apply. You know, MAC always do a stunning range of shades. I actually went back to their my PR friend at MAC, and asked for more shades, because the ones they sent me, as you may have seen if you watched my reel of this try on, were interesting. Some of them were terrifying, and they weren't typically the shades that I would have chosen myself. So I did go back and say, can I have these shades? Because I want to try the formula in shades that are more what I would wear. And so they're on their way to me, and I'm very excited to try them, keep trying them. I definitely think this is an improvement. They feel creamier, more pigmented with, you know, no building up needed. I think they did a great job of these. MAC's lipsticks, they're so easy to sort of forget about because they've been around for so long, but they're so good. Next up, I wanted to go back and revisit this Hourglass Phantom Glossy Balm. So this is the shade Mystic, which came in that holiday duo with Trace, I think. So Trace is an existing permanent shade that I already own, and then it's available in a duo with a brand new shade, Mystic, which is not just a brand new shade, it's also a slightly different formula. So Mystic has like a shimmering finish, whereas typically these Phantom Glossy Balms from Hourglass are just a gloss, with colour, rather than having shimmer and sparkle in. Now, in my review, I didn't say it because I didn't realise it until after the video had finished. It was starting to happen. I was getting, you know, that sort of clinging when in the middle of your mouth, the gloss is starting to sort of like stick together and leave strings. Do you know what I mean? That was happening to me. And so I did put a note at the bottom of my video to say that that was happening. And I've been investigating ever since. So I think what made that worse in the video is that I had on like a lip balm before, which I did wipe off before trying it on, but it still can, you know, linger a little in the center of your mouth. And I think that's why that threw this off. It doesn't always do it. What I've found is if I apply a lot of it, then it will happen. I'll start to get the stringing and the clinging together in the center of my mouth, but not on the perimeter. If I just apply, you know, one little bit of it, rub the lips together and leave it, it doesn't happen. So I think it's kind of finessing the technique. I think if you apply a lot of this, you'll probably end up with that stringiness, which I don't love, and which does not happen with the usual formula, the Phantom Glossy Balms, which is like my all-time favorite glossy formula. That doesn't happen with the regular formula. With this, you can apply it all day and it won't happen. But with this, with the glitter in there, it can leave it to be a bit like stringy and clumpy in the middle of your mouth. So just be warned, apply it lightly, don't apply a lot, or that will most likely happen. Don't think I showed you a swatch of this, which is going to be terrible because, like I said before, these do not swatch well, but it is a beautiful peachy shade, gorgeous. I've been wearing it a lot. You just have to kind of slightly use it with a lighter hand to make sure it doesn't cling together in the middle. You know what I mean? I don't know if you do, hopefully you do. And finally, lastly, but by no means leastly, I want to talk about these Chanel cream to powder blushes. These were such a surprise hit for me. These have gone in my top drawer. I just don't feel like these qualify as a cream. I don't know. They don't feel like a cream. They feel like the silkiest, powder known to man. I have no issues applying these. I think they're stunning. My favorite shade is Rose Radiant. I think these all have a slightly different finish. They don't seem to all have the exact same finish. The other shade I have is Beige Eclatant, and that one seems a little more matte, and then the Rose Radiant seems to be a little more radiant, as one might expect. Super pretty, so easy to use. They melt into the skin seamlessly. This shade, like I said, is stunning. They do have a lot of perfume in it, as we have come to expect with Chanel. We know it's going to be there, very perfumey. If you don't like fragrance in your makeup, you won't like these, okay? It's like I sprayed perfume. And again, a very unusual occurrence, they have found themselves in my top drawer, which for a cream product is unheard of in these parts. Very rare occasion, but I'm loving them. They're so easy to use. I don't have to use a specific brush or be very careful, or you know, just use them before I've done bronzer or anything like that. They just apply and work like powders, but on the skin, they have that melted, seamless effect of a cream without the effort. Love it. I think that's it. I'm looking around to see if I've missed something. I don't think I have. I think that's everything new to me in the month of September. So please let me know, what did you try in September? Did you try anything from my list? Is anything here on your list to buy? What are your thoughts on all of these new products? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.